It was too bad. He had no one to share it with. It really was a sad situation. Should I invite someone over for dinner sometime? The face of one of his coworkers appeared in his mind, but he quickly dismissed the thought. Sangmin was tired of being called an old bachelor, but he didn't want people to get the wrong idea if he invited a male coworker over for dinner. Speaking of which, I wonder how Kitchell is doing with that task. Kitchell was a smart guy who listened well, but he could also be a bit clumsy. Man, I need to stop thinking about work when I'm at home. It was time to eat. Sangmin hummed to himself as he set the bean paste soup down on the table in his living room. He was used to eating alone while watching TV. The dining table felt too big and lonely for just one person.
I pre-pressed the remote control and sat down.
The news was on. One of the nice things about being alone was not having to argue with anyone about what to watch. The TV stayed on a single station. Sangmin ate some rice while looking at the screen on the wall. A sudden explosion at the Hunter Command Center in Washington, D.C., has caused alarm across the country. Unconfirmed reports suggest that top-level hunters might be fighting. Huh? That's just crazy. He shook his head at the news while picking which side dish to try first. There weren't many options though. He decided on kimchi first. Security cameras near the command center caught a crack appearing on the building. Whatever the anchor said didn't matter. Yoonho saw how Daehyun skillfully made his way through the busy and packed market, slipping past sellers who had bright piles of spices and colorful clothes. The smell of special teas mixed with the sound of people talking all around them. When they got to a stand with fancy pottery, Yoonho became more curious. Sangmin was happy to answer the call, but his face showed confusion as he thought about what Jinwoo was asking. "Excuse me, you want to watch the training of the new recruits?" Jinwoo hung up the phone. At first Sangmin had not known what to make of the request, but he was fully willing to comply after hearing Jinwoo's explanation. Jinwoo was going to watch the new trainees from the White Tiger Guild raid a dungeon. He had borrowed the car. Jinwoo had taken time out of his busy day to bring the van around. He said sorry for having to go back quickly to where he came from. As Jinwoo saw him go, he thought Jinhyo was really admirable. Everything was now ready. Jinwoo stood outside the apartment building of the student in question. "It's just a short walk from our place, only about 2 minutes. Just a short walk away." He looked around the area. It was a small neighborhood, where old buildings stood close together. It was clear that her family wasn't rich either. He could see why the girl was excited about being a hunter. He had seen it all before. People like her are often hurt first. He had been hurt many times, and even came close to dying more than once. If not for his mom getting sick, he wouldn't have taken this job in the first place. Dungeons are brutal places for someone at his level. If he just let the girl be, she would regret becoming a hunter, or she might get hurt before she even had the chance. This kind of thing happens a lot, sadly. Many hunters get hurt every day. Jinwoo couldn't help all of them, and there was no real reason for him to try anyway. They had each made their own choices. But once he found out who she was, he knew he couldn't just do nothing. The name sounded familiar to him. Jinwoo sensed someone nearby, and looked up to see the little troublemaker walking toward him. The girl had her hair pulled back into a bun, and her eyes showed a confident look. "Huh?" she asked, looking at him with surprise. "What are you doing here, mister?" They realized they knew each other. It turned out to be a small world after all. He rubbed the side of his head, looking just as surprised. The high school girl wanted to become a hunter. She was the only girl on Jinho's team and also underage. Jinwoo had been concerned about working with her. "Is it okay to have her on the team?" "I talked to an expert, and they said it should be fine. No one hires kids under 18 because of potential problems. If something goes wrong." Sung-gi-han. When the homeroom teacher said her name, a lot of feelings came up for Jinwoo. He had decided to look into what was going on. She started skipping school around the same time. Jinhyo's group began doing their raids. By now it was hard for him to say it wasn't his problem. He felt like he should help. He had given her a lot of money, even though she was still a student. One thing he knew for sure: if something bad happened to her in a dungeon, he would feel terrible for not doing anything. There was no need to worry about her later if they talked now. So he decided to hang out with her today. It wasn't hard at all. "What are you doing here?" Sung-gi stared wide-eyed at Jinwoo. She looked surprised all of a sudden. Are you the hunter my teacher wanted me to meet, sir? He didn't like being called sir, but he still smiled, and nodded anyway. I don't care what my teacher said. I don't want to go to school anymore. Songi, I said firmly. She was quiet around others, but had strong opinions about things that mattered to her. Like many kids her age, she had clear ideas about what she believed in. Jinwoo smiled broadly. Songi looked confused, unsure how to react to his response. He spoke calmly. I didn't come here to tell you to stop hunting. She was surprised again. Songi was one of those kids who pushed harder when told to stop. Jinwoo never planned on talking her out of it. Instead, he wanted to show her the truth. He understood because he used to be the same way. During his first big challenge, he figured this out for himself. He remembered how stubborn he was back then, and realized Songia needed to see things for herself. Sometimes you have to let people learn by experiencing it themselves rather than just telling them what to do. Jinwoo knew this firsthand from his own experiences. The reality of hunting was much tougher than Songia had imagined. She tried hard not to look confused. Then why are you here? Jinwoo stepped closer to her. She flinched but stopped herself from stepping back. Not wanting him to think he scared her, Jinwoo stood in front of her and gave her a mischievous grin without realizing it. I'm here to make you a great hunter. Jinwoo didn't have to convince Songi hard to get her to go with him to a dungeon. When he told her she could watch the newest members of the White Tiger Guild train, she quickly agreed to join him. She didn't seem to think Jinwoo had any tricks up his sleeve. When she asked how he knew her teacher, he showed her a picture of himself with Gina. Are you really Gina's older brother, mister? She asked. The words still bothered him for some reason, but he let it go since everything was going as planned. Hop in, he said. Thank you, Songi replied. Jinwoo took Songi to where the White Tiger Guild rookies were planning to do some nighttime training. He was told they'd start at 9, so there was plenty of time to get there. Vroom. A black van that seemed too big for just 2 passengers turned a corner. Did his quick thinking and awareness make this happen? Jinwoo had not driven since getting his driver's license but found it surprisingly easy to handle the car. Whenever he concentrated, the other vehicles seemed to move as slowly as snails. Sitting beside him, Songi asked, does Yuhain really study all the time at home too? People say she put pages from an English dictionary on her bedroom walls so she could study while falling asleep, but Jinwoo didn't think much about it. He just saw her as a sleepyhead who loved fried chicken. Gina is just like you, someone once said. When she gets home, she plays games, eats, and sleeps. Mostly she just sleeps. No way. How does she get such good grades? I don't know either. When she was in middle school, she used to go to the arcade with me all the time. They kept talking until they got near the gate. Jinwoo parked the car. Squirch. This neighborhood was known as an area where many gates were located. Finding a place to park was easy because most of the people who lived there had left. He had heard that about 80% of the homes were empty now. There was talk that the whole area would be torn down once everyone left. Jinwoo and Songi stepped out of the van. The air felt heavy with something ominous. Jinwoo thought he heard cheering coming from beneath his feet. He wondered if it was just his imagination. Songi looked scared by the spooky atmosphere until she saw other hunters gathered in the distance. Her eyes sparkled as if she had just seen famous people. To her, they were hunters from the White Tiger Guild. For someone who looked up to hunters, they felt like rock stars. On TV, hunters were shown in a way that made them seem larger than life. Oh, you really came, Kachul said, when he saw Jinwoo and walked right over to him. Do you remember me? Jinwoo nodded slightly. Since Kachul's smile seemed real and not just for show, Jinwoo smiled back too. He had talked to Kachul only a couple of times, but Kachul seemed friendly. Manager and told me everything. One of them said, is this the student? The girl named Songi bowed. As they greeted each other, a tall, strong man came over. That's enough chatting, he said. Let's move out. This isn't a field trip, and it's already 9. He turned around and walked back toward the gate. He had an aura about him. Jinwoo turned to Kachul. Who is he? Oh, he's a new A-rank member, but he wasn't too happy about someone observing the training. He said a dungeon isn't a playground. He's an A-rank. Kachul nodded. A prideful A-rank would act like that. Jinwoo had another question. How strong is our team today? 1 top-level hunter, 7 mid-level hunters, and 4 lower-level hunters. So 12 in total, Top and mid-level hunters going into a lower-level dungeon. Rank doesn't matter. Newbies need to learn, and this is their chance to gain experience, Kachul said with a smile. He also mentioned that they would be sent to high-level dungeons right after this one training session, because they were so strong. Sure, but having an A rank and 7B rank still seems like a lot. Jinwoo's expression changed. There was only one reason: Sangmin had agreed to this. He wanted to show off the White Tiger Guild's new members, hoping it would change Jinwoo's mind. But Jinwoo looked at the gate with disappointment, which surprised Sangmin and Kachul. The gate was only a C rank. The members seemed too strong compared to the gate's level. Jinwoo worried that if everything went too easily, his plan might not work. This concerned him the most. Jinwoo tried to convince himself that everything would be okay. He wanted Songjia to understand why an E-rank hunter wouldn't be helpful in the dungeon. She kept asking when they could go inside, not knowing Jinwoo's secret reason. Jinwoo looked at her and saw how excited she was. He wondered how long she would stay that excited. Jinwoo held back his laugh as he spoke to Kachul. Kachul looked around before whispering to Jinwoo. "First P.S." he said softly. "Hunter Sung, if you join the raid, it will end too fast. So please just watch." The reason they came was to observe the training, so that was already clear. "Of course," Jinwoo replied. He was planning to go through some C-rank dungeons with Jinhyo the next day. Anyway, so there was no need to interfere with the White Tiger Guild's training. Jinwoo had planned to use his shadow soldiers in the dungeons with Jinhyo. That's why he brought Songyi along. But he didn't want her to see how easily he could defeat magical creatures using his shadow power. If she saw that, she might think being a hunter wasn't as hard as it actually was. Jinwoo and Songyi walked together toward the front gate. The other hunters were friendly, unlike the high-ranking hunter they had met before.
"Hello, nice to meet you."
This time it wasn't about getting rich. The more people we had, the better. It was tradition for everyone to introduce themselves one by one. When it was his turn, he just said pass, and walked through the gate. "We should go in too." The White Tiger Guild trainees entered the gate one by one. Songyi glanced back at Jinwoo just before she went in. "How about you?" she asked. Jinwoo crossed his arms and said, "You go first." She looked a bit scared but nodded and ran inside. Jinwoo stood in front of the gate and let out a quiet sigh. He felt like someone was watching him. When he turned to look, he saw Kachul waving and cheering for him. Jinwoo turned back to the gate. Wait a minute. The gate surface kept moving like water. Normally when no one is using it, the gate should stop moving and look smooth and black. But this one wouldn't calm down. It just kept wobbling like waves in the ocean. There was something different about it. Jinwoo tapped the gate with his finger. Shloop. The surface was a sticky go. It stuck to his finger and stretched like gum as he pulled back. "It can't be." Jinwoo turned around quickly, and he and Kachul exchanged urgent looks. Kachul could tell something was wrong. Jinwoo shouted, "Call your main strike squad now." Before he could say anything else, Jinwoo was pulled into the gate. Kachul looked shocked. He ran toward the gate, and 3 more White Tiger employees followed him. Kachul stood in front of the gate, looking confused and upset. No way. The hunters were not the only ones who were inexperienced. He had also brought new office workers to train them. Of course, none of them knew anything about this kind of thing. The other workers looked at Kachul with fear in their eyes. Assistant Manager, Hyan, the gate is turning red. The red color started spreading like someone was spilling blood on the surface. Kachul ignored the others and quickly made a call. "Yes, Kachul. Sir, it's a red gate. The one the trains went through has turned red." "What?" Songmin sounded angry. "What are you talking about? How can a red gate come from a sea-level one?" Kachul looked back and saw the gate had turned completely red now. The shimmering effect on its surface was calming down. He swallowed hard. "I am not sure either. But it is definitely a red gate, sir." "What do you mean a red gate?" You know Baek, who was in charge of the White Tiger group, rushed to the site after hearing the news. Kachul, the man overseeing trainees, looked worried and turned pale. "Sir, I need to see for myself." President Baek walked quickly past the employees in front of the gate. They were standing very seriously, as if something bad had happened. "It's really a red gate." His face turned serious. What was a red gate? It was a dangerous link to another world. Hunters could only escape by either defeating the boss or waiting for the dungeon to break open. Once a hunter went inside, there was no way out. The red gate would keep everything outside from getting in. It would be impossible to enter or leave. The president touched the gate. It was just as he thought, very hard. This isn't good. No matter what they tried, they couldn't help the hunters inside. He shouted at Kachul. Wasn't this supposed to be a C-rank gate? It was, sir. Did you have the association confirm? Yes, but they insisted it was a C-rank gate. Those idiots? Yoon-ho blurted out. A red gate could only come from higher-rank dungeons. These gates connected their world to another, so with as much energy flowing through it, how could they call it just a C-rank dungeon? This one was at least a B rank. In the worst case it might even be an A rank or higher, yet the association wouldn't admit their mistake. Kachul asked, "Sir, should we measure the gate again with our own manometer?" President Baek shook his head. Red gates are closed tight, so we can't get an accurate reading. This means there's no way to know the real level of the gate. There were more pressing concerns than figuring out its rank anyway. How many of our members are inside? 12, sir. How many of them are high-level hunters? The leader is Hunter Chul Kim, who is a level, and he has 7 B-level hunters with him. 1 A-level and 7 B-level hunters. What about the new recruits? Will they be okay? The president shook his head again. They don't have much hope. Only if they got really lucky might 2 or 3 of them survive. The chances are against them. These hunters can barely handle the easiest B-rank dungeons. Anything harder would be too tough for them. Unless something amazing happened, those trainees had no chance of surviving. Bukvik looked really worried. Kachul glanced at the president and said carefully, there's something else. Another person went in with the new recruits. The president looked up. What were the chances it was a strong and experienced fighter who just happened to walk by and joined them out of curiosity about the training? A miracle might really happen. This would truly be amazing. He spoke louder. Who was it? It's the hunter I've been watching, came a voice from behind them. Yoonho and Kachul turned around at the same time, to see Sangmin breathing heavily and covered in sweat. Sorry, I'm late. Sangmin arrived last because he lived the farthest away. He looked at the red gate. It looked like the entrance to a strong iron fortress. Staring at it made him feel overwhelmed. But if it's Jinwoo Sung, Jinwoo might just change everything here. Just like he always has. Sangmin had a slight hope. Yumaho came up to him quickly. You mean the hunter you've been keeping an eye on, Manager An? He asked. Yes, sir. Yumaho remembered hearing something about this. He knew Manager An had been very busy lately trying to catch a specific hunter. Manager An was good at finding talented people. Could that hunter be special? There was a little hope. Is he an S-rank hunter? If he was there, would be no way Yoonho wouldn't know about him. There are very few S-rank hunters in Korea. Sangmin shook his head. Oh my god. Baek's face began to relax. Then an S-rank hunter went in there. Sangmin replied calmly. No sir, he's an E-rank. Baek made a face, as if something tasted bitter. Jinwoo was surprised. Does this gate lead to the other world? This was his first time experiencing it for himself, but he'd read about other people's experiences online. They all said it felt like they were pulled into the gate. Jinwoo thought that was a good way to describe it. Once inside, everything was dark, and he felt like he was sliding to a strange place. When he opened his eyes, he was standing in a snowy forest. Where are we? This doesn't look like the inside of the dungeon. The gate is gone. The hunters were confused as they looked around. While everyone else was stunned, Jinwoo squinted and looked around. He didn't see anything strange. His training from the system helped him stay calm, even though everything felt weird. The first thing he noticed were the trees. The trees were evergreen and not common in Korea. They stood close together, reaching up to the sky. Jinwoo noticed that the snow on top of them could be dangerous if it fell. Then he looked down and saw someone. It was Chul Kim, a high-ranking hunter like Jinwoo. Chul Kim was also carefully looking around. They stared at each other for a moment before turning away. Meanwhile, Songgi had walked up to Jinwoo and started pulling on his clothes. Something's wrong, right? She said, her voice shaking. Songgi looked scared and had lost her brave act. Jinwoo suddenly grabbed an arrow out of the air, and it zoomed right past her face. This startled Songgi. A loud scream came from somewhere else. Another man fell to the ground after being hit by an arrow. Blood ran down his face and dripped from his lips. The hunter started crying. He gasped, struggling to breathe. No one noticed Jinwoo catching an arrow in midair because of the chaos. "Look over there," someone shouted. "It's those guys." One of the lower-ranking hunters pointed to a tree far away. Before he pointed anything out, Jinwoo and Chul were both staring at one particular place. There were two figures there. They looked like people but were really creatures. These creatures had white hair and skin with silver eyes. Their ears were also pointy. These magical creatures were famous for how beautiful and rare they were. They could only be found in higher-level dungeons. Some people called them ice elves because of their appearance. However, those who had fought them knew the truth, and called them ice slayers. The latter group often said that a nice name like elf did not fit those they strongly disliked. Jinwoo quickly saw why experienced hunters disliked the ice slayers so much. The two creatures looked creepy as they aimed their bows at the hunters. They seemed like they were standing in front of a big feast trying to decide what to eat first. "And what was your decision?" Jinwoo frowned, thinking deeply.